everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Believe Fantasy Football Show. I am your humble host, Fabs, and look who I got with me today. What a treat. The Hall of Famer, the legendary king, the hardest working man in the fantasy football business. You're like Apollo Creed. You have so many nicknames. It's Bob Harris from Football Diehards. What's up, buddy?
You have just one. It's Fabs. How are you, sir? Thanks
it?
for having me on. Always enjoy my time spent with you, even though it's way more than I would like.
That was kind of a compliment, I guess. Anyways.
Circuitous route to get to a insult.
You know what that was better than? The Monday night game.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I remember the NFL product being this kind of not good. So, I have never, well, I guess I wouldn't say never. I don't really fall asleep before Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday night games end, obviously, because we need to watch these games to know what's going on. Dude, I fell asleep at halftime. I did not see a second of the third and fourth quarter. And apparently I didn't miss anything.
There's very little. So we were talking about this last night on the radio program, the Football Diehards program on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And so the question was, why do we get such lousy games? And it's because the NFL is more interested in the drama aspect than the game aspect, right? They're not thinking so much about the games. If they were, like, I know fans are an issue and you have to set them up so they can, make plans and things. But ideally, you would have like way more flexible schedules where you could move games to prime time that are actually relevant in the now, as opposed to what you think might be relevant in May. It's always going to be an issue. But also, I mean, you can go back to last year. What was the first game? It was Seattle and Denver, right? Because Russell Wilson had moved. Why are we seeing so many Jets games? It's because they wanted, Aaron Rodgers to be on the field. And I just think, they leverage it. You can't know what's going to happen. You can't read the future. You don't know who's going to be hurt and how crappy games are going to end up being. But if you had some kind of, ability to flex a little more is all I'm saying, NFL. I know they can't do it, but that would be the answer to this. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck with the the TMZ outcomes. The drama, the storylines are more important than the competitive nature of the games.
And you've got a quarterback problem in the NFL. You got a quarterback problem on the planet. Honestly, you can't find 32 people on the entire big blue marble who could play the quarterback position at a relatively consistently good rate. It just seems like it's impossible. And then we obviously have lost more quarterbacks. We've got 4 teams on a bye this week. Chiefs, no Mahomes. Tua's out. The Dolphins being on a bye. No Jalen Hurts. I mean, this week hurts. No pun intended. When it comes to the quarterback position, and then Stafford / Rippin with the Rams being on a bye. Let's go through some of the bigger news items, though, as we get into the middle of week 10, which is crazy that we're already in week 10. And at the quarterback position, the 2 big stories are Daniel Jones out for the year, which means it's going to be Tommy DeVito or Matt Barkley against the Cowboys. Start that Dallas defense and expect like 20. And the Cardinals, it looks like Kyler is coming back. If you have Kyler Murray, you've been hanging on to him for this long, Bob. It's been 9 weeks. And your quarterback situation is maybe not so great. Is Kyler right back into your lineup?
I mean, define not so great. I mean, that's
let's say you have let's say you have this week Jared Goff, who's got a good matchup, but he's on the road, or say you have a Russell Wilson who's not got a great matchup against Buffalo. Is Kyler in your lineup?
Probably not with those options. I mean, like, yeah, I've said this a lot this year. I don't need to play a breakout, or I would like to see a little evidence. The thing about Kyler is, first game back, we don't know how he's going to look. But also, I mean, he's played in an air raid offense since high school. This is a different kind of offense. I don't know how he's going to operate in this. I don't know how much effort he put in. I'm going to assume the best and hope for the best. And if I was in a position where I had to play him, I would throw, if you need a body and he's in the game, I would play that. And he has a great history as a highly productive player. I don't know if the supporting cast is going to help him out. We'll see if James Conner comes back. I know we'll talk about that. That might help him out some. Michael Wilson was out last week. They didn't get a lot of production, from the wide receivers in general beyond, Marquise Brown. There's not a lot there. Zach Pascal, I don't even think got a target. It was like, we should say the Cleveland game was an outlier. There was no rushing production. Everyone was getting less than a yard per carry, except Clayton Tune, the great Clayton Tune. And so I don't want to put too much on that, but there's not a lot of great pieces around him. So if I had the opportunity, I want to take a wait and see approach with Kyler Murray.
The running backs, you mentioned James Conner. Few people are as dug into the news in terms of the injuries as Bob Harris is. Trust me, I know that after knowing the man for well over 2 decades. Conner is eligible to come back. The Cardinals opened up the window. Khalil Herbert is eligible to come back. The Bears opened up the window. Devon A-Chain looks like he's going to be back after the bye. Remember, Miami is off in week 10. Dameon Pierce was banged up, didn't play last week. What's the latest on some of these running backs that maybe we'll get back this week? And hopefully Connor's one of them.
Connor seems more likely to me than Herbert. It's a short week and they just opened the window. So he's only got a couple of days to get ready. That seems less likely than Connor, although neither of them are sure things. Connor isn't either, but, Amari DiMarcado, I don't know that he's going to be ready to go again. So that leaves them with, the pieces that didn't fare well against Cleveland. And Atlanta's not a joke of a defense either, right? Atlanta can be troublesome at times. So I would like to see Connor back. I think he clearly, gives them a way better option than the pieces that are there. I do think that, if you're sitting here trying to sort out some of these guys, I mean, you should go out and check if you're in a league where the arcane rules don't allow for IR. And there's a lot of leagues out there that don't have IR. People may have had to move on from some of these pieces, including like Kyron Williams, who's like maybe after week 12, he'll be back. H.N., who you mentioned. But go out and scour that, probably no one has had to let go of Justin Jefferson, but look for those names, those big name players that are on IR that are getting close to coming back and maybe make a proactive move on them if they're available.
One concern that I have this week is that Jamar Chase's back injury is going to keep him out. And he suffered that injury this past week against Buffalo. And you could see, man, I mean, he landed on his back hard. And there's already been some quotes from Jamar Chase that are, let's just say, a bit cryptic.
It's fine.
Let's hope he's okay. But Jamar and someone that we're going to have to keep tabs on this week. It looks like Debo could come back this week, right? For the Niners. Christian Watson was injured last week. Drake London did not play. Justin Jefferson, when are you hearing that Justin Jefferson could come back?
It's been very vague. Kevin O'Connell started talking about it last week, and he's, I think it was last Thursday or Friday. He said, I don't have that information. That's the case still on Monday. I'm guessing if they were going to open the window, they'd be opening it already. So, I do think the win, and Josh Dobbs gives everybody some hope, and maybe that works in favor of the notion that Justin Jefferson comes back. But if you remember when he got hurt or shortly after he went on IR, the reporting was Adam Schefter and all the various insiders that when we hit the 4-week mark, he'd have more imaging done, more scans, and they'd see where he's at. And it might be a couple more weeks before he's ready. So I'd be watching that one carefully and seeing, like Josh Dobbs was great and fantastic, and the rushing ability does him well. But, you look at Arizona, he started out a little hotter than he ended up. So you wonder if that's not going to be if we couldn't see the same pattern. And also, there's no Cam Akers there now. Can they, he could be forced to be the leading rusher for that team, right? I mean, Alexander Madison's not going great guns. Ty Chandler doesn't excite anybody, although people should probably be out there grabbing him on their waiver wire if they have room for speculative plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Minnesota's offense, it certainly is more talented than Arizona's, so that's going to help Joshua Dobbs. And when Jefferson comes back, hoping he does, we just got to keep the Vikings in the playoff hunt. That's the most important thing from a fantasy perspective. Even if you couldn't care less about the Vikings, if you've got any of their assets, especially a Justin Jefferson, you want to make sure and hope that the Vikings stay active in the win column, let's put it that way, and stay alive in the postseason hunt. So Jefferson has a shot to come back. The Giants, this isn't even an NFL team right now. Like for me, listen, I hate the Giants. I'm a tri-state area Dallas Cowboys fan, so I hate the Giants. So I have I ain't crying any tears for this team. But they have had some pretty brutal luck. They could be starting Tommy DeVito this week against the Cowboys, or Matt Barkley. Either way, start the Cowboys defense with confidence. Like the Cowboys defense should give you at least 15 this week in any kind of format. But you've got Darren Waller, who's out, and who knows if he'll even be back this season. The Giants aren't going anywhere.
Right.
Their offensive line is shot to hell. And their defense has stepped up and played better in recent weeks, although they got crushed by the Raiders and Aiden O'Connell. But what is there, and I'm going to talk about this later on with Saquon Barkley, but is there any Giant outside of Saquon that you have any faith in whatsoever this week against the Dallas Cowboys?
None.
None, right? There's
none. I mean, like if you're like maybe contrarian plays in DFS tournament lineups, right? I mean, that's
like Bellinger or something like that, or
Bellinger,
Wandale.
Wandale Robinson would maybe, but I mean, honestly, you're just tossing a dart out there and hoping for the best and trying to be contrarian. There, it doesn't get any more contrarian than that. Except for like Will Levis's first start, if you stacked him with DeAndre Hopkins, that was pretty contrarian. Worked out well for people.
Trade deadlines are coming, Bob, and I love the trade. I love it. Bob and I just made a trade last week. In fact, is a blockbuster, and I'm probably going to send him $1 million more offers before the trade deadline ends.
You should be worried in the Dirt Dynasty. I'm getting little nibbles on Christian McCaffrey. People are interested.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll have to take a look and see what's going on there. So, anyways, I figured let's give the people out there some players that you want to trade for now, and maybe some players that you want to trade away. And I'm going to start with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's had 3 strong games in a row, well over 20 points in every single game. He's got the Giants this week. And the one concern I have with this game is that the Cowboys are killing this team so badly that Dak doesn't play much in the second half. And the numbers are a bit modest because of that. But he's got the Commanders. He's got another game against the Eagles. He's got the Dolphins. He's got some pretty good matchups moving forward. You're not going to have to pay an arm and a leg for Dak Prescott. Do you like acquiring Dak right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. There's a couple Cowboys I wouldn't mind acquiring. Tony Pollard's another one. His matchups have been pretty difficult up to this point. The games where his matchups haven't been as strong, he's been way more productive in the games where he has had the tough matchups. And going forward, the matchups get a little lighter. So you might find a disgruntled Tony Pollard investor who might be willing to give up on him as well. So there's a couple Cowboys I'd be interested in.
Derrick Henry, who he's been good. I mean, he's not putting up like elite type numbers, but he's been fine. He's been good. But look at his playoff schedule. He's got the Texans twice. In his career against the Houston Texans, he's rushed for over 200 yards 4 times. All right. Including 2019, where he did it twice. 2020, he did it once last year in 2022. He's just crushed this team. And he's got Seattle in the other playoff week. So you got Texans, Seahawks, Texans. He's also plays the Panthers and the Colts this year, moving forward. Derrick Henry, do you feel like you'd be able to pry him away from anybody? And if you did go out and trade for him, say what wide receiver would be a 1-for-1 deal for Derrick Henry that you would take?
You would have a hard time prying him away from me for the very reason you said. But if I was looking to get him, maybe like a Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, one of those higher end wide receiver 2s, find him coming off a big game, hopefully. Maybe in the case of, T. Higgins might be another one, especially if there's someone thinking, wow, there might not be some Jamar Chase this week. Maybe you could leverage him with Joe Burrow playing well. But it would take one of those high-end wide receiver 2s on a really productive offense.
Isaiah Pacheco, who's coming off of 2 bad games in a row. I think you could buy low on him right now. The schedule, he's got a bad game against the Eagles coming off of the bye. But then he's got the Raiders twice, the Packers, the Bills, and the Patriots. Right now is the time to trade for Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a handful of backs that I'm kind of interested in, looking at the schedule down the road. Some of them you're not going to be able to get away from their managers, Austin Eckler being one of them. I would say Bijan Robinson is somebody you might be able to get away from, a frustrated manager right now.
Yeah.
And the schedule down the stretch is pretty favorable. Carolina, Indianapolis, Chicago in the weeks that matter most. And you're probably not going to be able to get Josh Jacobs coming off a big game, but I like his late season schedule, and I like the way the offense was, the way the play calling went down. They really leaned on the run, and that was kind of beneficial. So you're going to have a hard time getting him, but you might be able to get a Bijan. And also, some that I'm like maybe looking to move on from. Gus Edwards seems like a really great
sell high
candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A couple of wide receivers that I like in terms of acquiring: Brandon Ayuk, who he's been good. He hasn't been great the last few weeks. But he's got the Jags, the Bucks, the Seahawks twice, the Eagles, the Cardinals, the Commanders. I mean, he's got really good matchups. And even though Debo's coming back, I don't care. I'm going to be trading for Brandon Ayuk. And then this one here might surprise some people, but I would go out and try and buy low on Hollywood Brown right now. Yep. 2 reasons. First off, he plays the Steelers, the Niners, the Bears, and the Seahawks coming up. Those are really good matchups. He's got good matchups in the fantasy postseason. And Kyler's coming back. So what do you think about going out and getting Hollywood?
Yeah, Chicago and Philadelphia in the key weeks of the playoff run, I think is a great idea as well. By the way, going back to Barkley, I mean, there's a great sell high candidate because it's not going to get any easier, right?
We're getting to that, Mike. Yeah, we're getting to that.
It's not getting any easier. So, but yeah, I think I agree with you on both of those receivers.
Players to trade away right now. I've got Trevor Lawrence on the list. I've kind of gotten fed up with him. And the problem is that he's not going to bring back a king's ransom because his numbers haven't been great. I mean, he's averaging 15 points per game. That's very unsatisfying, as the kids would say. He's got the Niners, the Bengals, the Browns, the Titans, and the Ravens coming up. So not great matchups. Trevor Lawrence is somebody that if I could move him now, I would. You may be able to get a little bit more value for him in a 2 QB league or a super flex, but not feeling him. Let's go back to Saquon Barkley. You just mentioned it. Saquon Barkley has the toughest schedule remaining for a running back. And he's got no quarterback. His offensive line is shot to hell.
Yep.
The Giants are going to have nothing to play for late in the season. If I have Saquon Barkley, I am desperately, maybe not desperately, I'm not going to give him up for
fairly desperately.
I want to move him.
Yeah.
I want to move Saquon Barkley right now. Bob, give me a wide receiver straight up that would warrant Saquon Barkley right now, knowing what you know about their schedule and about the talent around him or lack thereof.
Well, I guess it depends on what the person you're trading with knows about the schedule going forward, who you're playing with. I'm assuming that you're in leagues where everyone knows what's going on. I think you're going to have to, probably expect that person's going to realize it's not a great place. But here's what you're selling if you're trying to sell Saquon Barkley. The NFL right now is so volatile, the week-to-week matchups, you never know what the heck's going to happen.
Yeah.
And my bigger concern for Barkley is, are they going to even keep playing him, right? At some point, does it pay just to shut everybody down and go? But right now you're selling the volume. He's getting tons of volume because he's the only piece they got. And granted that doesn't always lead to effective production. In his case, it has led to solid production. So what you're selling that person who you're trying to trade with is that consistent workload. You don't get that with a lot of players. So I do think, if I'm looking to move him right now, I'd be wanting a pretty high-end receiver, and I think I would be disappointed in what I got.
Raheem Mostert is somebody that I want to sell high on also. Now, you can agree or disagree with me. It's fine. He's got the Commanders, the Titans, the Cowboys, the Ravens coming up. The Jets, he's got the Jets too. The Jets are not great against running backs, but they're still a good defense, and he's still got 2 games against them. Achane's going to come back. And God bless Mostert. I love it. I'm so happy that he's having a great year, but he's never been a durable guy. Are you sticking with Mostert, or would you rather trade him away?
I'd rather trade him away. You wonder if others will feel the same. It's going to be all about the price. He's still going to remain a startable commodity, even with HM back. We saw that. So, assuming he's healthy. So yeah, I'd be looking to sell him, but I'm not going to give him away.
2 wide receivers that I think you could sell right now for a pretty good price. Jordan Addison, who's coming off of a so-so game, but I think there's a little excitement around Joshua Dobbs and Terry McLaurin. And I love McLaurin. I'm a big fan of McLaurin. I actually acquired him in one of our dynasty leagues. But he's got the Giants, and the Giants, and I know we can crap on them all day long. Their defense has not played badly, especially lately. He's got the Giants, the Cowboys, the Rams, the Jets among some of his tougher opponents. That's McLaurin. So I could see trying to flip him if you're deep at wide receiver. And then Addison, first thing is you lose Cousins. And okay, Dobbs is fine. Dobbs is not even close to being on the same level as Kirk Cousins as a passer in the National Football League. He's not. And Jefferson's going to come back at some point as long as the Vikings are still relevant in the playoff run. So these are 2 wide receivers, Bob, that I feel like I can
do it now.
Right. Right now. The time is right now. The time is right now.
Because, you got the good feelings. Whether Josh Dobbs was great as a passer or what, he was better as a runner, right? But the good feelings, the good vibes surrounding that team is right now. And so move him now.
Let's go to the waiver wire. There's one running back. And you can throw somebody out there if you think there's anybody else. But let's start off the quarterbacks. Russell Wilson is still available in over 50% of leagues on Yahoo. If he's available and you need a quarterback, go get him. I know the matchup's not great this week against the Bills. This is more of a long-term.
Gets better.
move.
Detroit,
Yes.
New England, Chargers down the stretch
Yes.
run into the playoffs is a fantastic schedule. So I'm with you there. I would be looking to acquire him.
Russell's the guy I'd go first, and then I'd go after Dobbs if Russell's not available. Running backs. Is it Keaton Mitchell and that's it?
Not in the leagues I'm in because Keaton Mitchell was snapped up weeks ago.
Well, in leagues that we're in, okay, but I mean, we're not normal people in normal leagues.
So
Keaton Mitchell's available in a ton of leagues.
Right. It's going to be a murky 3-man committee. And so, but like, that's not the only one. And we're all playing pieces of some of those right now. If you're playing a Cleveland running back, it was a little less murky this past week, a little less Pierre Strong, but he's still there. So, those backfields can be beneficial. Look, this is how the NFL works now, people. There are not a lot of guys to get those true feature roles. That's why I suggest playing up the volume of a Saquon Barkley. That's a kind of a rare thing right now.
Yep.
But yeah, all these players are kind of, are usable commodities in the portion of the season we're in. And you got the week 13, the huge Buymageddon coming up again. So yeah, I think Keaton Mitchell's a player that should be rostered in way more leagues than he is.
Yeah, wide receivers. Surprised that Tank Dell's not owned in more leagues. 50% of leagues he's available on Yahoo at the beginning of the week. Demario Douglas is available in over 60% of leagues. He's the number one wide receiver for the Patriots. I get it; they stink, but still, you're looking for anybody, right? He had a decent game last week. He's getting targeted a lot. So Demario Douglas, who was not really on our radar 5 weeks ago, is now somebody who is. Give me your thoughts on Quentin Johnston, because he did nothing against the Jets, but it was a bad matchup against the Jets. He's got the Lions coming up. That's a better matchup. Is he going to be startable in fantasy, do you think? Or is he kind of just depth bet, for your bench?
So last week they used him a little differently. They were going for some big plays in this game against the Jets. I don't know if that's his lane. I think if you keep it shallow and you go across, just get the ball in his hands in short term. But the problem with Quentin Johnston, if you listen to the Draftniks, and I do, because I'm not one, so I pay attention to people who I trust. He's a body catcher. He's not a great catcher of the football at this point, right? I'm sure he'll improve, and they'll get more out of him. But I think right now that offense is down to 3 playable pieces on a weekly basis: the quarterback, the top wide receiver, the running back, and the tight end is a viable streamer. But beyond that, I don't want to dig in. Now that Josh Palmer's not there, and who knows, Jalen Guyton will further removed from his return. He just was activated this week. He may become, he'll be a limiting factor for Quentin Johnston. So until I don't feel a need to push the envelope on that one.
Cedric Tillman, if you're in a larger league, according to PFF, he had 4 fewer snaps than Amari Cooper and had 9 more than Elijah Moore.
Yep.
And Donovan Peoples-Jones got traded to Detroit. So Tillman, if you're in a larger league, is worth a look. People, Bob, are going to be looking for help at tight end, especially those who have Dallas Goedert or had Dallas Goedert. Goddard's now going to be out for a minimum of 4 games with the broken forearm. We're hoping that we could potentially get him back in time for the fantasy postseason because he had been playing pretty well at a really thin position. Out of Jonnu Smith, Luke Musgrave, and Cade Otton, who do you like most moving forward if you're looking to replace Dallas Goedert?
I mean, I think we're at the point where we just have to admit that Arthur Smith is a thing for other Smiths.
He
Jonnu
does.
Smith,
Yeah.
Right? Like, just like I'm in on all the Harrises. Go, Najee. And
Yeah.
Damian, I've still got your back, man. Look, took that screen pass, 60 yards, great play, his longest play for the Falcons this season. 5 catches, 100 yards. He now has 2 of the top 10 tight end receiving yards performances this season. Travis Kelce is the only other tight end with 2 top 10 receiving yard performances this season. I'm not saying that Jonnu Smith is Travis Kelce, but in a world where we are streaming tight ends, and even the star tight ends, the guys we're counting on, don't give us consistent high-end production. Jonnu Smith is in that group of players that has that upside in his game. I'm probably playing him.
Yeah. Cade Otton is coming off a huge game. The matchup's not great this week for Otton against the Titans, so keep that in mind. Musgrave also does not have a great matchup this week in Pittsburgh. Jonnu Smith is certainly the guy to go out and get. So, but before we close up shop, I want to talk about a handful of players. I want to get the opinions of the great Bob Harris on a handful of players who have maybe not been performing up to expectation. And I argued yesterday on Fantasy Dirt that Devontae Adams is no longer a must-start player. Like, if you're starting him every week and not thinking about other alternatives, you're being lazy. Let's start off with Davante Adams. He has had single digits in 4 of his last 5. In the one game he didn't have single digits, he had 12. Aiden O'Connell's the quarterback. They're playing the Jets this week. Davante Adams is a start him or sit him, Bob. If you have, I don't know, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson.
How about if you have Jacoby Myers?
Yeah, I mean, he's been better. He's been better than Davante Adams. But I feel like starting Davante Adams now, like some people are gonna be, well, I kind of have to. Well, do you? Like wide receiver is the deepest position, so like there could be alternatives, right?
This is a conundrum, right, for managers. I mean, being mindful of the fact that Davante Adams over the course of his career has averaged like 2 points per target. I mean, if he gets heavily targeted, that upside is still there. So I guess I'm comparing him, to the players like I'd start Adam Thielen over him right now. Yeah. I would start maybe Michael Pittman Jr. over him right now. There's a handful of players I think that that have risen up. Jordan Addison probably still in that range. Puka Nacua, if Matthew Stafford comes back. I mean, there's a lot of players who you've probably developed that are legitimate decisions. So I am a big proponent of divorcing the name from the numbers and from the draft capital you invested on a player. I mean, at this point in the season, players have defined what they are. So again, I think a lot of the times that we don't take these star players out of our lineup, they just end up clogging our lineup and keeping us from actually succeeding. But it's the fear of missing out. We're going to miss out on that big game. It's coming. He's going to have that big game. Well, sure he is. Maybe so is the other guy that you're going to play in his place. Maybe the other guy you're playing in his place has had more of those big games and is more likely to have a big game. So I'm with you.
How long do you wait? I mean, it's been 5 weeks now with Adams. Cooper Kupp, do you keep him now or do you try and move away from him? He's had 2 bad games in a row. Actually, is it 3 bad games in a row? And 2 of them were with Stafford.
Yeah.
I mean, you forgive the Rippin game because Rippin's he's ripping, So is Cooper Kupp somebody that you want to trade for now? Or do you want to hold on to or do you feel like maybe like this is the start of some bad things to come moving forward?
Both those things can be true though, right? I mean, again, we're playing a game of probabilities. The probabilities, the positive end of the range of possible outcomes is fantastic with Cooper Kupp. And I don't know that he's not still that guy. Maybe we're seeing signs that he's not. Maybe it is a more systemic problem. But I think if I was a gambling man and I found someone willing to give up on him cheap, I would probably be gambling that he is closer to the upside Cooper Kupp than the non-worthwhile Cooper Kupp.
Let's go to DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf has quietly not been good the last 3 or 4 weeks. In fact, I believe in his last 3 or 4 games, he's averaging 9 points per game. This past week, he did next to nothing. Is DK, who has got a matchup this week that's very favorable against the Commanders, is he somebody that you're trying to buy low on right now?
I think this is a Geno Smith question.
Right. Well, Geno Smith's been awful. Yeah.
Right. That's been a big part of the problem. I think I would be trying to buy low if possible, especially given the matchup this week.
Okay. Running backs. We already talked about Saquon. Tony Pollard. And you know me. I mean, look. I love the Cowboys. Tony Pollard has been a disappointment this year. Now he's got the Giants this week, and he falls into the same category as I'm afraid the Cowboys are going to be crushing this team, and Pollard's numbers are not going to be great in the second half. Go back and see what he did against the Giants earlier in this year in that same scenario. Are you selling Pollard? Are you trying to acquire him now? Like, what are you feeling about Tony Pollard?
I'm buying. I think, there's a couple things here. The schedule has not been great for him, right? In the games where he should have excelled, though, where the matchups were fairly easy, he has excelled. He's averaged well over 15 points per game. I want to say in how many games was that? About half the games, right? And then the other half of the games, he's been horrible. Going forward, the schedule's a little better. It's like the 10th toughest. I think that's pretty reasonable. The interesting thing about him, maybe this is as much about how he's being used. But remember last year, and I think we all do, when Skip Heath, then the running backs coach, told us that the Cowboys had decided that Pollard was best with a certain number of snaps, and beyond that, he's not as good a player. Maybe we're seeing some of that. Also, I talked to our friend Michael Gelkin from the Dallas Morning News a week or so ago, and he pointed out the number of runs where Pollard hits his top speed, like 19 miles an hour or faster. In past seasons, that's been like close to 5% of his runs. This year, it's below 2%. It's like 1.7% of his runs. Is that indicative of Mike McCarthy running him up the middle, not using him effectively in space? That might well be. And so, but the volume again is there, and the matchups get a little easier. So I'm a buy, and hopefully he can break some loose. I think he bulked up a little bit too, and maybe that's been an issue.
From your lips to God's ears. Final one, Ken Walker. Last 2 weeks, Zach Charbonnet is playing a bigger role. You got the Commanders coming into town this week in the Great Northwest. Concerns about Ken Walker, or are you trying to go out and get him right now?
I might be trying to go out and get him right now. I'm looking for disappointed managers. It hasn't been great. I'll grant you that. And Charbonnet is doing more. You wonder how much of that goes back to the injury 2 weeks ago. That seemed to be the more limiting than last week. So I'm hoping this week we get back to the full workload. The Pete Carroll history we both know is he tends to stick with the primary guy as to the degree he can. And so I'm hoping that evens out over the stretch run here.
Bob Harris, you are a great man. We see that over your shoulder there. That is not a plaque to signify the greatest OnlyFans site. It is to signify it is to signify that he is in the Hall of Fame. Bob Harris, where can everybody out there find you if they don't know already?
FootballDiehards.com is the website. You can find me on the Football Diehards YouTube channel, the Football Diehards radio program on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, and at Football Diehard on the social media. I try to keep it simple, people.
Fans.com/football diehards or onlyfans.com/Bob Harris.
There you go, smart ass.
All right, Bob, you're the best. And who knows, maybe in the near future, you and I will maybe doing a few episodes of the Fantasy Dirt program together over at Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Channel 87. Make sure you check out Football Diehards. Make sure you check out Fantasy Dirt. And make sure you're checking out the Believe Fantasy Football Show right here with your friendly neighborhood fantasy analyst, Michael Fabiano. For the great Bob Harris, the legendary king. Everybody out there, have a great week 10. Hit those waiver wires, and we will see you on Thursday, where we will break down Bears Panthers. Oh boy, I can't wait for that one. And the rest of the week 10 slate. We'll see you soon.